Hi, and welcome to the Core Coaches Corner, where we take a principle from one of the 7 core healthy and happy habits and discuss it through a core lens. And I'm joined today with Cary, our C coach, and we're excited to be here and excited to talk about more about approaching conflict with confidence. Cary,
Yep.
want to say hi?
Happy to be here. One of my favorite conversations. So I'm always happy to talk about anything core or healthy and happy.
Yeah, and Carrie is very, very well versed and educated in both core and in the 7 core healthy and happy habits, the roadmap to help you integrate you into your life. And um, so this month we've been focusing um, on the well, first we started late in the month, but we were focusing on the sixth habit, healthy and happy habit, which is approaching conflict with confidence. And such an important thing. And the previous um, five elements, uh, 5 habits really help set the stage to be able to resolve conflict well. um, Conflict resolution is predictably one of the most challenging, important and challenging and disruptive things in people's lives. What are we going to talk about today, Karen?
Well, I was just going to say, first of all, being a C, that name of approaching conflict with confidence is it. I have all the feels. Like, I think that probably speaks the most to a C, I would imagine, just because it's so hard and so scary, or it has been, I think, for a lot of C's. And then also kind of like, is that even possible, But knowing, like you said, knowing the 5 previous steps really does make a difference. I think for me, number one is understanding what CNUS is and what it's all about can help me bring me to the table, even of conflict. So
Totally. Um, yeah, and approaching conflict at all, let alone with confidence, is a super predictably challenging thing for C's and for O's. Um,
yeah.
R's and E's tend to do a better job at this naturally than C's and O's do for different reasons. But what do you want to talk about?
Well, I was thinking about receiving and what gets in the way of being a good receiver as far as I guess temperamentally, but as far as being a C, what would get in the way of being a good receiver? And then also, what does it feel like to be received as a C? I tend to think that most Cs have the ability to receive very well once we have the confidence and the settlement that goes with
Framework,
that.
right?
Yeah. But if that's not there, receiving is, we might think we're doing a good job, but I think that we don't. When we're unsettled, it can be really difficult as a C.
Yeah, let me.
What do
That's actually a really good point. So let me just kind of framework wise, um, and for those of you that watched the core coaches corner with Amy, um, that we did on this, we talked about the fact that conflict resolution is about um, sending and receiving a message effectively, which is really all conflict is doing that. It's communicating around a subject matter that is hard to communicate around, and and our CPR framework is a framework to provide structure to be able to do this safely. And C is communicate, which is the quarterback, and P is protecting attachment, and then R is receiving. And so we're talking about R and receiving, and so your role when you're the listener, and how to do that effectively. And you, I mean, just in what you said, I think is an important point that I'd like to explore a little bit, which is, um, what do you think? What do you think it is about C-ness that makes it difficult for for C's to receive well?
Um,
Because I agree that that's a challenge. And what do you think that's about?
I think part of it, honestly, is I think the seed temperament is naturally wired for attachment. I think that Cs are naturally sensitive, naturally available when they're healthy, when we're settled. But when we're not settled, I think the belief is still there. I think that I think that Cs think that we're good at it. Um, but also we hate it, if that makes sense. I mean, and so being unsettled, but also thinking that I'm listening, thinking that I'm receiving, thinking like, no, I understand what you're saying, but you're not. And I think it's the helping the other person feel understood gets hard because I think C's when they're unsettled think they're doing it, but not. It's that, does that make sense? The unsettlement makes it so electric that I think it's like sending electric
Yeah,
prickles.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head because um, the default for the C brain, I mean, the central emotional process for the C brain revolves around emotional settlement, wanting to get and stay settled emotionally. And when the C brain becomes unsettled emotionally, um, they automatically, the brain on its own will automatically sit and ruminate and cycle around whatever has them unsettled, trying to work through the sandstorm to get the dust to settle. And during that sandstorm, the default is, especially when somebody is unhealthy, but just seeing in general, the default is very much to become consumed with the unsettlement going on.
Yeah,
And so it's really hard for the C when they're discombobulated emotionally to be to not be consumed with what's going on inside of them. And so conflict by definition is discombobulating.
totally.
And so you're asking the C brain to go into a situation when they're frazzled, when they're, I like my little, when when they're undone,
Yeah,
um, and therefore the C brain is screaming to go inside and try to get the dust settled, and that is really unhelpful if
yeah,
you're trying to be focused on what's going on with somebody else.
yeah. I literally have times when I literally can't see when I'm in that state. Like it's being in that sandstorm is a real description of that. So yeah, it's really hard to hear somebody else when you can't even hear your own thoughts and you can't even see because they're just everywhere. And that, yeah. And so then that understanding that can be helpful. Um, just understanding that alone, but also communicating about that with the person you're in conflict with. But it's not the only thing that's helpful. You know,
and and like we talked a lot about, um healthy doesn't shift just because healthy is hard for you. And that's one of the things that I think is so beneficial about understanding core, is because every single core temperament has things that naturally really line up well with healthy, and things that are naturally very incongruent with healthy. And so I can't just say, I am an R and so I do this, or I can't do this aspect of healthy because I'm an R, or I can't do this aspect of healthy because I'm an O. Sorry. It doesn't change what healthy is. And so this is one of those things where C-ness um, gets in the way, is incongruent with healthy receiving um, in this aspect, because like you also said, C's are naturally really well positioned to do this process well when they know what to do and when they're managing it well. Most of conflict resolution, most especially receiving, really lines up well with C-ness, um, with the caveat of this of having access to your brain, right? I mean, if you're able to be in your upper brain, which is what our CPR format and this whole module on approaching conflict with confidence, everything in this framework is about helping the process be set up and to go well, and then to be able to be sustainably managed to go well.
Yeah. I used to think I sucked at conflict. And what I've learned, the more that I learn about myself and learn about C-ness and about healthiness, is I learned that I actually can be really good at conflict when I'm willing to do the healthy things. I don't know if I'll ever love it. I'm pretty sure I won't, but I think that I can be good at it. And can I just say some of the things that I found that not only with me, but with people I work with, that I find helpful, but I'd also like to hear what you would add to that as you've been doing this so much longer. One of the things,
Yes.
if I am the one to first address the conflict, so the one that brings it up first gets to go first, right? It's easier, but also I don't ever want to do it. And so if there's something I want to talk about, being willing to prepare myself to go into it and starting it actually can be really helpful. Number one is because I can write down my thoughts. I can come prepared with something to read if I need to. If the sandstorm starts happening, I can read it. Also, being prepared by making sure my reservoir is full, and then I've also communicated that this isn't easy for me and that it takes me time to get my thoughts down. Like being able to set it up to go well helps me to stay settled. And then when I'm received well, right, if I can help the other person receive my message, that settles me so much that helps me actually be in my strength of my C-ness, that I can be a good receiver, because again, C's want to help other people feel understood.
Totally.
When I feel like I'm being understood. When I'm not the receiver, that to me is like, if somebody brings it up to me first, especially if it catches me off guard, if it hasn't been set up to go well, that's when I have the hardest time.
Well, and that is the C hack of how to deal with what we were talking about with the sandstorm. What you can't change about your C-ness, for those C's of you who are listening, what is unalterable in C-ness is the fact that your brain needs time to let the sand settle. One of the biggest strengths of the C brain is seeing how things connect, and being able to make those connections. And it takes time to do that. Mm-hmm. And so that part, you can't change the fact that your brain needs time to settle. What you can do is control when that happens. So you can take the time before an issue is brought up to think through it and to get organized emotionally about it. Or you can take the time when you start to become undone, when you start to become unsettled, you can call a timeout and get yourself settled and come back. And both of those are incorporated into the CPR framework. If you're the quarterback, you absolutely have the time to use our sheet, and to identify what the main point is, what the key issue. You ought to talk a little bit about your key. I like that. What the key issue is, and how you feel about it, and why you feel that way. And you can come to the table with that prepared. And like Cary said, having it written out is awesome. And then when you're the receiver, when your partner comes to you, a big part of receiving is they come and they say, okay, so Cary, I've got something that I would like to talk to you about. When would be a good time? So if that activates your C sandstorm and you're like, conflict, and it makes you feel discombobulated, it's totally healthy to say, one, how big of an issue is this? And then to assess kind of where you are in your window of tolerance. Those are two steps that we teach to find out how big the issue is, because you might have enough resources, you might be in a good enough place to deal with the two, But if it's a 7 or an 8, you might not. You might need some time to let your sands settle a little bit.
Yeah.
And then um and then also taking time to assess, where am I in terms of my window of tolerance? Am I in my upper brain? And so you can do that. And as long as, if you're not, or at any point in the process, if you start to become emotionally flooded and feeling the sandstorm come on, healthy is calling a timeout, getting yourself settled, and then coming back within 24 hours to address. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that calling the timeout is not the hard part. It's the back to it. And so it's a commitment that we have to make. And part of being a healthy C is being willing to create comfort and create connection. And so remembering that not coming back to it isn't creating connection can be a mantra to help the returning back process, because that's really hard and scary. I think especially if you are dealing with a temperament that moves on quickly, and try to bring them back can be a whole other scary in the
Yeah, you also hit one more really important point there, which is, um, you know, comfort and connection is what C stands for. And I think we talked a little bit about this with onus as well. O's want to feel good, want to have pleasant emotion, want to be enjoying themselves. C's want things to be comfortable and they want to be connected. And having unresolved conflict impedes both of those things. For C's and O's, who are most likely to avoid conflict, avoiding conflict compromises what it is that you actually really want to be feeling. And so understanding that the way to be comfortable in your skin and in your relationships, the way to be connected with the important people in your life, and the way to have the emotional vibe, the emotional environment be one that you want if you're an O, is to work through conflict and not to avoid it. You end up being more uncomfortable across time. You end up being more disconnected. The energy and the vibe in your relationship ends up being worse as you avoid conflict. And so remembering that is hugely important as well.
yeah. Can I just share one more hack
Yeah.
that I found works? Is so with the CPR method, you have the protect attachment in the middle, and I used to call it an attachment sandwich. But I think at least for C's, maybe for everybody, it's more of like a layered frosted cake, and the frosting is the protecting attachment. So I do better when I start with protecting attachment and reminding myself and the other person that the relationship matters and that they matter to me. Um, and then doing it again in the middle, and then coming back and doing it at the end. That keeps the settlement.
Totally. You need to do that all the way through. And that needs to be a consistent message that um I'm doing this because you matter to me, because our relationship matters. Um I if I didn't, if then I wouldn't be having this conversation if I wasn't interested in trying to be connected with you. And so that's a really good point. Well, any kind of final closing thoughts on that?
I'll just say, like, if somebody's in a relationship with the C and wants to help the C with the settlement piece, yes, coming up with those key points. I like to look at it as key events, emotion, and then your interpretation or your meaning of things. So preparing for that, but also knowing that as a C, that's still going to take time, and being willing to take the time to fully listen and help the C feel understood is going to, I think, to me, that's the number one thing that helps me feel settled. Knowing also I can't rely on somebody completely to do that for me, but it's very, very helpful just for somebody to know that it's going to take me time, even if I'm only getting to the point. The point doesn't
Totally.
exist without.
That's again one of the biggest blessings and benefits of understanding core is knowing how the other person's brain works and what is necessary to be able to engage with them in a healthy way. So that's imperative. So yeah, well, thank you very much. It's a great conversation.
Thank you.
Hopefully you guys have found a nugget or two in there that you find helpful in terms of receiving.
Yummy.
We'll see what
I said, or at least some yummy frosting.
right.
I'm just kidding. All right. See you later.
See ya.